I'm Maddie.
I'm Amber. And we're Witches Talking Tarot.
We are the weirdos in this story.
Like a song, like a sailor snubble. Flip the switch and let the cauldron bubble. Sam.
Wow. Hey everybody, I'm Amber.
And I'm Maddie.
And we're Witches Talking Tarot. And today, I am excited to talk about this. I've alluded to it in many an episode, and I was like, we need to do a full episode on that. And we just covered all these other spooky season topics. So let's dive into the past of myself and our country, of the great country of America, and visit the Satanic Panic. Come on, guys. Megadeth and probably other bands. I just remember Megadeth being really fucking hated on for like being quote unquote so satanic. But that's because they leaned into the Satanic Panic, because the Satanic Panic itself was the panic. It was the fucking media, as you know, they do.
I actually spoke.
And the church. I'm going to blame the church too. I'm sorry.
That's okay. I actually spoke with my husband as to like why people are so quick to believe these things without evidence, because there wasn't, with certain most accusations
Rumor
with the same
fact.
Yes, but my husband explained it, and I guess this makes kind of sense, is we as people have evolved to, or we used to be, if someone says, hey, there's a tiger over that hill, you believe them. You don't risk your life to go fucking see if there's a tiger over the fucking hill. You know what I mean?
Oh, well,
and it's like
I mean,
that evolutionary, I guess that trait just stuck. Like, oh my God, there's a predator? I believe you. I don't want to risk my well-being or my children's well-being.
And, you know, I mean, that makes sense, but I don't think like in the same fear-mongering way, I agree. But I think this is much more targeted, like fear-mongering, because the Satanic Panic comes right after the beginning of the New Age movement has taken, you know, and the New Age movement took hold because all these different Christian sects had been, you know, springing up throughout the country, and none of that was working. And then we got the New Age movement.
Check out our episode on the New Age movement.
Right. And last season, that's why I wanted to cover the Satanic Panic like pretty close in like succession episode wise, because like the Satanic Panic is born out of people being afraid of the New Age movement, because a lot of people still to this day see like using crystals and pentacles as satanic, you know? And so like that fear, because we saw in that episode, you know, check out, like Maddie said, you know, there were things that were seen as satanic in spiritualism by the mass of Christians that were the predominant religion of this country. And that's like the Satanic Panic is a direct result of fear. And so like in that way that you say a predator, I'm going to believe you, I agree, but I really think it's based on that whole religious movements we've seen from the very first colonization through to our current century, because we've seen so many different religions try to take hold and fail, and religions evolve as they've gone through. You know what I'm like? I don't know. I grew up during the Satanic Panic, and like, I remember the news reports, and I went on YouTube and I pulled some up, and they're funny. They're funny.
They're embarrassing.
They are embarrassing. They truly are.
And a lot of y'all still sound like that to this day.
That's true. Absolutely.
So many, like, I can't, and I just wonder if these New Age, modern day 2024 like people that are ultimately still following and believing this the exact same thing to a T.
Right.
Do you realize that's exactly what your parents told you about? And when your parents told you, you're probably like, this band is not that, I love this,
right?
And now it's like you are them now. But then I say that, and then I can see half of them being like, I just knew better, you know what I mean?
Well, and it's like, but it's all based out of fear, just like you guys said. But like, I see it as a direct correlation of all those things we talked about in the New Age movement episode, specifically the cults that existed throughout, you know, the 18 and 1900s. And then, you know, in the Satanic Panic, we see a whole lot of talk about secret satanic cults that are out
Well,
there.
you say it's all based on fear, and I read two concepts. One of them being like it's almost the exact opposite of being based on fear. You want to feel brave. You want to feel like I'm important. I'm going to protect the children. You know what I mean? So they feel like they're taking these stances like, no, I know what's really going on. F you. I'm protecting the children. So they feel brave and important and Katniss Everdeen. You know what I mean? Because life is pretty fucking boring. So they sorry. So they want to feel important in a world where they're ultimately not that important. And I don't say that in a shitty way. Everybody's important, but you know what I'm saying.
Well,
right?
I get you, and that directly correlates to other things that we've talked about with the Salem witch trials. At the very beginning of this season, just a couple episodes ago, we talked about the Spanish Inquisition and the fucking Crusades and all that stuff that the Catholic Church was behind, and all of it was to control the people, right? And you had those people who were like, I feel important. I'm going to speak out.
Like I'm in control, but really it's the other person. Exactly. Like, and that's what I think, like that article really put it into perspective, because one of the most important things a person can do is protect the
youth. Yeah, absolutely.
Protect the children.
That's our future, right? Like that. I'm pretty sure, if not to this day, at one point during my growing up, like that was one of America's slogans, was how like we were the future, you know? You know, like that was a whole concept. It's actually the truth. That's like, it's how you should see it. Like our youth are our future. Yeah. We have to take care of them. We want them to be raised well so that they can do a good job as stewards of this earth.
So what I was reading when I was doing my research on this was a lot of claims did not have any significant evidence.
Oh, like the majority.
Like none of them. There was, what was it, 5 people, something like that, that literally sat in jail for years with no evidence against them. Look, I'm not saying they're innocent. I'm not. But I'm not saying they're guilty either. We have a, you know, court system the way it is, like flawed as it is. Innocent until proven guilty. They weren't proven guilty. There was no evidence. They sat there.
And I mean, like, I don't know if you're specifically referencing that one.
It was like 7 employees. And then,
was it the daycare center that kind of started this?
Maybe it was.
It like, because at the core of what a lot of people will call the beginning of the Satanic Panic was a daycare center.
They called it daycare panic or something. Like that's what it was called when I was reading.
Okay.
It was like a panic over a daycare or something.
Well, and I mean, children getting harmed through satanic cults or satanic rituals at daycare was specifically one of the big things of the Satanic Panic.
Well, and that calls into Freddy Krueger.
Well, and I mean,
like Freddy Krueger straight up.
Well, but I mean, like, and granted, like that movie didn't come until later, you know, from the like, it's in the 80s, but this first thing that happens in this daycare where this boy has a hard time pooping, and his mom's like, "Your butthole was messed with, wasn't it?" Like literally, is
God damn, Amber.
Well, like.
So sad.
But it wasn't like he just was having a hard poop. I mean, but his mom and dad were having a bad divorce. His dad was probably the one that enrolled him in the daycare, and she accused the dad and one of the daycare workers as having, you know, hurt her child. And she swore that her kid, you know, verified this. And then, like, you know, like all these unqualified people went in and planted ideas in these children's heads after. See, I never knew this. I never knew this until this research.
Keep talking. I have to look this up. So
this police state, or the police that were over the area where this happened, they sent an open form letter to 200 parents. That was like, so there may have been child SA happening where your kid went to daycare at. We want you to ask them if they've ever been messed with. We need you to tell us. And then like, you know, after you talk to your kid, let us know.
Mhm.
And so like all these scared parents are saying, you know, did this happen to you? Did this happen to you? Did this happen to you? And like a lot of the kids, like any kind of like anything the kid did, and the parents are like, oh my God, you were messed with. And like it's just a crazy, like,
well, and that
it's
is
so fucking crazy.
you say
And
all
like,
this.
is that the same as the 7 guys that were in prison for 5 years until
I don't
they
think
were
so.
released?
I don't
Okay.
think so.
'Cause,
But
like that
you
was in
say
the
all
court
this
system
about
for
the
a couple
daycare.
years.
And I was like, oh, light bulb. You know what that reminds me of? The OG story of Freddy Krueger. Because Freddy Krueger, the original story was that he was a child molester. He was.
I mean, they
took
allude
that-
to it
they
in
took-
later movies, like because
Right.
like he lures kids down into his thing and he tortures them with these
Right.
horrible gloves that he's
Right.
created.
They took out
Like-
the excess of him being a child molester because of the daycare incident. It was written within that time. So before they filmed it, they were like, "This is too real right now.
Well,
Let's take
yeah,
this
and then
out."
in later movies they totally bring it back.
I'm
I mean,
sure they
like,
do. I know
yeah.
they do in the modern like remake.
No, that's what stupid ass movie.
But,
It's fucking terrible. OG Freddy all the fucking way.
I like
Robert
them
Englund all the way.
I like them all, but
Nah, Rob-
anyway, they did take it out because the Satanic Panic was so fucking psychotic that it literally it affected pop culture. Like they
Yes,
took
it
that
did.
out of the movie because they were like, "This is too real. This just happened."
Yeah, no,
You
and I
know?
get that because like again later it's alluded to. If you miss it, you're dumb. Like,
Mhm.
oh, that's the roughest part. Freddy's my favorite slasher. But anywho, I
I
don't think about it.
like the Nightmare on Elm Street. I like the OG.
I
with
like number
Jack
number
not
3
Jack
and
Black.
number 6 are my favorite Johnny Depp.
OG with Johnny Depp. I do like the remake. I've watched them all. The Nightmare on Elm Street is one that I will watch all of them, remake or not. I like Freddy.
The new Nightmare is so bad.
But if you understand, it's
No, the one.
the new one.
No, that's not called. No. I'm talking. No, the new Nightmare is the one where Heather. I think it's the one where Heather Langenkamp comes back after all the sequels. It's a Robert Englund one. It's
I'm
not
talking
that
about
one.
the 2012.
No, I
one.
know. I'm saying like
Then I
that
have no
one
idea.
is the new Nightmare is my least favorite Freddy movie of the Robert Englund one.
Well, I have no
I
idea
can't
about
s-
that one.
That one's
But the
so
2012
bad.
one-
Why is that kid on the highway? Yeah.
But the 2012 one is more based off of the OG script that was discarded because during the Satanic Panic they
Yeah.
had the issues.
And I mean
So-
that little case right there, and it was all based on rumor. There was
Yeah.
no fact. Like, and when I was reading that police letter, I could not believe they just sent that to 200 parents. But that's kind of the spark that
They
ignited the
literally
fire.
said, "Ask your kids
Yeah.
if they know a victim, have seen something, or are a
Yeah.
victim themselves." I know exactly what you're talking about.
That's crazy. What was that police station thinking?
They weren't.
I
Well,
mean, they're trying
actually,
to save manpower
let me say
hours.
this.
Granted, it's easier for a kid to talk
Something
to their
I did read
parent.
about the
I get
Satanic
that.
Panic was it was around the time that we stopped trying to sweep child molestation and rape under the rug. In even the 70s,
So you
60s,
see it everywhere.
50s, 40s, that shit
Oh.
was swept under the rug.
Oh yeah,
they just
when
ignored that
kids
shit.
told like it was just kind of like, oh, stop making up stories.
Yes, stop making up stories. They wouldn't do that. Keep that to yourself.
Yep.
It's your fault.
Yep.
If you're a
Oh,
little girl.
absolutely.
So, like around
Oh,
the time
yeah.
the Satanic Panic came out, people were now coming forward.
Yeah.
They were now doing something about it. And like you said, you see it everywhere.
Yeah, and I
At
mean,
least
like,
according to what I read.
but
Yeah.
but it was so crazy because you see it everywhere because they were looking for it everywhere.
Mhm.
So like all of a sudden, all the news is about like, because I remember the news when I was a kid and I couldn't help myself. I looked up some YouTube videos of like just the news from the Satanic Panic, and it's so silly. Like it's like straight 80s hair for one. Which
I
is
believe it.
silly. But like the things they're saying, and like there's a guy who's like, I was a satanic priest in the satanic cult for 10 years, and I'm just now learning to smile again. And I remember watching that motherfucker on TV when I was a little kid. Like legitimately, It was a crazy time. And I think it was a crazy time that fully shaped current era and fully shaped our pop culture.
Well,
Completely.
two things. One, again, I was talking with my husband because we were just talking about this during the whole time. I was doing research, and one of the things is like, I think is now that child molestation and rape and things like that were coming forward, nobody wants to believe their friend's going to do that. It's just like the werewolf. No one wants to believe that their friend's going to kill a child. It must be a werewolf. It must be a satanic cult. You know what I mean? It was
and satanic cults became the getaway for when you did something fucked up like that. Like you kill your wife. Oh, you draw a pentagram right there by her body with some black candles. And now the police are looking for a satanic cult doing a ritual killing. Like it really, the media fear pervaded what actually happened because it was easier for people to believe that a satanic cult would do these awful things.
And not Uncle Joe.
Right.
Another thing is there's a woman on TikTok. I don't know her name. I follow her because morbid curiosity, but she claims, I'm not saying she's lying, but her stories are so crazy. I just don't know if I believe them. It falls right into Satanic Panic. She claims that she is a child survivor of a satanic cult.
Okay.
She claims that her mother was a high priestess of a satanic cult.
Okay.
She claims that she has watched hundreds of children being unalived as sacrifices, that they would dress up as like Mickey Mouse and crap to do that to the children because Disney was part of the satanic cult. She claims that she had told multiple people and everybody said she was lying and nobody believed her. And she'll go on there and she'll cry and she's like, please believe your children if they're saying that they have seen this and this and that. Her entire platform, again, she talks about her mother and how she would laugh because these children, they would just pick up random children. My thing is like, if somebody's doing hundreds of child sacrifices a year, how are you going to get away with that many motherfucking murders?
Okay, I have a twofold response here. For one, it is not that I do not believe satanic cults exist because I totally believe there are actual satanic cults where, they have, really out there ideologies and they do bad things. Because cults absolutely exist. I believe some of them probably are satanic. I think a lot of the ones that popped up in the 80s were satanic cults that were based off of what the media said about Satanism versus what Satanism really is. So whether I believe this girl or not, I don't know. However, I could see if the children that are being hurt are either children that have been, abducted from like crack houses. Crack was big in the 80s. Unfortunately,
houses, the foster care
exactly
system.
Like you could get away with it, or if it's kids they're having them strictly for the reasons of sacrificing. And because as much as I think it's disgusting, because that
I can't
that
say I don't
horrible
believe it doesn't
imagery
exist.
right, because that exists in the pop culture era. And even like in the 1800s, because there's that Sabetha person that we'll talk about in a couple episodes, or we just talked about it last week. I'll have to look at the calendar and see in relation to each other where these episodes are. But, that lady from the original Conjuring house, right? Like she literally did have a kid to sacrifice it, right? Because like what she had read about like following Satan was like, that's how you whatever. So I'm sure there are people that do that. I'd like to think that that's very few and far between, and all based out of mental health issues versus an actual desire to harm children. But I can't be naive or ignorant enough to say, oh, that doesn't happen. That never happened. That didn't happen. You know what I mean? Like, I think it would be naive of me to pretend that that's not possible.
That's why I'm like, I truly don't know. It's the same with, well, before I get into that, I just want to say, we want to talk about cults that are harming children. Let's look into Arizona, New Mexico,
let's look into ones
Nevada,
that start with
they fathers marrying their 11-year-old daughters.
Right.
And they're not satanic.
Right. They're following the Bible.
Exactly.
So,
but they can get away with it.
Yeah,
You
and they're
know?
still cults. Like, and exactly, and it's like
But neither
that,
is
I'm glad you
okay.
bring that
Yeah.
up, because that was one of the things that I had thought I was wanting to mention, and then I totally forgot. But like, because these cults exist and these cults are based off of the Bible,
Mhm.
who is it easier to point fingers at corrupting America and doing bad things in America? Oh, satanic cults. Oh, those guys that are worshiping Satan and sacrificing and hurting children in the name of Satan.
Right.
They're bad. These guys, they follow the Bible, so we gotta, I don't know, we gotta cut our
he
brother
may
some
have
slack over
married-
here.
He may have married his 11-year-old stepdaughter.
I mean, that's Uncle
but that's-
Gregory.
Yeah, like, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like,
like,
literally.
it's easier to point the
It's the
finger at
same
somebody who has different beliefs than it is to acknowledge these guys who share a similar belief system are the bad guy. You know what I mean?
And
I'm glad you brought that up,
necessarily
because like
think
that, I think that is totally part of
It
where
is.
the fear in Satanic Panic
it is
era
like Bryson
came from.
brought it up as well, because they're not necessarily doing child sacrifice, but define child sacrifice.
Right. I
They
mean,
may
when you're
not be
taking away their
murdering them,
childhood, you're marrying them off to your friends when they're children,
and they're
defiling
having children while exactly it's
defiling them.
and that is exactly what they're accusing satanic cults of doing, when we know they are doing it right here. But we have a theory this could be
Right.
going on. Let's focus on what
could be going on with those guys who we don't necessarily
Right.
like agree with,
even though this is
ideologically.
actually
Right.
going
There's proof. There are people complaining and people saying, please help us.
Mhm.
But we're going to point the finger over here and say, no, we think you see that you see that star and that circle, they're real close together. That
Yeah.
means Satanism.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? Like,
Which brings me to Michelle. And I do want to talk about her. I did research on her. So around the beginning of the Satanic Panic, some doctor, I can't remember his name, I remember hers.
fuck that guy. Who cares about him?
He
Don't let his name live on. He was a criminal.
Right.
He's an actual
He,
criminal.
quote unquote, hypnotized his patient, and she remembered all of this stuff. Who, his patient then became his wife.
Right.
Enough
And
said.
so and Michelle would have been a kid right around the time that Anton LaVey founded the Church of Satan in the 60s.
Yes,
So
exactly.
like the timelines of like that fear of people who think differently, and we'll get into that more in next episode with Sheeps and Gold.
It's called Michelle Remembers. Part of me wanted to read the little passage, but then the other part's like morbid curiosity triggered.
Yeah,
I don't think I can do it. I don't think I should do it.
I've watched so many little like documentaries about that, because I mean, like, this is all from my childhood.
Right. Well, she claims to have remembered, and I just want to remind everyone, false memories can very well be implanted, especially when doing hypnosis with therapists. It was a huge thing. Anyway, she supposedly remembered that her mother sold her to a satanic cult when she was 5 years old, where she was then essayed multiple times. She was tortured and used in satanic rituals and all this awful stuff. And so much so that her husband was like, we got to share this. There are people suffering. There are children suffering. He writes a book. It immediately becomes a bestseller.
And he completely traumatized her in doing so. Like,
even if it
I
wasn't
do
real,
not believe that it came out later that it was absolutely fabricated. Like you said, like most of the things that were claimed during the Satanic Panic, there is absolutely no evidence that any of it was happening. And like most of the time when there was some kind of murder or bad thing that happened and there was like black candles and a pentagram nearby, it's mostly because the person who perpetrated the crime was trying to make it look like Satanists were involved, but like, unfortunately, he just fucking he brainwashed his wife into thinking she was
his
horribly
patient.
tortured. His patient,
and then she became his. Sorry,
yeah.
He brainwashed her into being his wife.
Probably,
I really believe.
Well,
that.
he brainwashed her into thinking she had all this trauma.
Exactly. Now,
like,
it wouldn't be a Satanic Panic episode without mentioning the Night Stalker.
Oh, absolutely. Because again, like there are things in the Satanic Panic that really were, he was doing his killings for Satan.
I think he's ugly as fuck. I'm sorry. Everybody thinks every time I hear about him, oh my God, he's so hot. Bro, look at his teeth. He looks like a werewolf and not even the sexy kind.
Look, sometimes
Like,
look, maybe you only saw pictures of him with his mouth closed, Maddie. Look, it's not my fault. And why? Why did American Horror Story have to make him look just as sexy? Because I cannot help it. I did think he was hot.
a lot of people
fuck.
did.
But I don't agree. Like, terrible person, nasty ass fucking teeth. Nasty. Once I saw his mouth open as an adult, I was like, oh,
He looks like a demon to me. He looks like a demon.
like he had I'm pretty sure he had pentagrams carved into
like
his
the
hands.
werewolf guy
You
from
know.
the OG. like literal. Oh my
Well,
motherfucking
and it's like
God.
we've already talked about him in the episode that made me physically ill when we talked about that hotel that he stayed
yeah,
in.
that made us both
You know,
really
yeah,
sick.
it was
That
yeah,
was
that was
rough.
rough. But he himself is despicable and disgusting and is a demon. You know,
looks
he
like
is
one.
a demon.
He really
you know what?
looks so
I don't
much
want to
like a
sound like
demon.
one of these woke like influencers and be like, it's demonic. But I'm just saying, like, that individual is a fucking demon.
Possessed. I bet. I
he-
feel like he was possessed.
You know, and part of me thinks that he had mental illness because
Mhm.
obviously he was a fucking serial killer. Obviously, he had mental illness.
Something's wrong.
You know, there's something wrong with him. And I think because of all the satanic imagery in the media and the
Mhm.
things about the satanic panic, he's one of those things where I'm doing this for Satan. Satan is the voices I'm hearing. Because I'm pretty sure he was like, you know, having problems. Not to be rude and disrespectful by doing that hand thing. But I
He
did
was a
just
little
go back in time to the
cuckoo.
80s. Yeah. It's like, was he schizophrenic? I'm not sure, but like I'm pretty sure he heard Satan talking to him. So probably schizophrenic.
I haven't watched 1984.
Probably a schizophrenic
and
demon.
I need to.
It's so good.
Everybody
Except they make him
says
so
that.
fucking hot.
Everybody says it's so good. I got so far as to the guy comes out that he's a gay porn star for money. One of the like younger guys, not boys, but he's a man. You know what I mean? The friend.
Right. No, I'm just trying to remember.
I think that's like what, 4 episodes in. I
I'm
did
trying
not
to remember.
finish
I've
it.
only seen that season. Like
I know there was a killer, and then there was another one, and then they were
I
fighting.
mean, the Night Stalker.
The
is one
Night
of
Stalker
killers.
was one, and then I don't remember the other one. The
I
other one
have
was
no
like
idea.
Freddy. I don't know.
I fucking don't know.
But I have not watched that one. I tried. The best part about that is the fucking exercise. Like, I'm sorry, I
The
love
cult?
it. No, are they a cult? I haven't
Are-
watched that far.
Okay.
The exercise where they're doing
Yeah.
the dances. Love.
Pretty sure that's a cult.
I went to.
Pretty sure that's part of the.
I want to do it.
It's so good.
I want to wear those outfits and the leg warmers and the headbands, and I want to go to a.
I do
fucking
love me some
exercise.
80s. Yeah, like I
Like-
wish I had. I used to have this big scoop neck shirt, and I would have worn that for this episode, but
It's like
I
a
don't have it
leotard.
anime. I turned it into a Halloween costume fodder for when I
Um,
dress up like an 80s zombie.
Yeah, you've seen the
Sorry.
video / movie. I haven't seen just the clip where it's like Jamie Lee Curtis and John Travolta, and they're doing the dances. And John Travolta has this huge ass boner, and he's like thrusting and shit. Like, and she's the teacher. You know what I'm talking about?
No.
Oh my god!
what?
Yes.
Like it sounds like you're talking like they've taken John Travolta from like Flashdance or whatever.
Oh my! Well, he's a dancer. Like he is. I don't know. I
Like
don't
what
know
movie are they in together?
I have no
What?
idea, but they were
Jamie
fucking-
Lee Curtis and John Travolta
Yeah,
in a movie
like
together.
look the dance up. Like it just say like dance or some shit like that because it's amazing. He has the biggest fucking boner I've ever seen, which is like I know it's not real.
Perfect. Oh, they were in a movie together, and it's called Perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
See?
Yeah. I have seen this. I know that image of John Travolta. I used to have a crush on John Travolta. Yeah. Okay. I know because she's wearing that leotard. Oh my God.
Yes.
I remember that movie.
Yes.
Oh my God. And he's in the whitey tighties, but they're not white.
I know.
I forgot about that movie. Oh my God. Because she's all just like thrusting with
Yes,
her
and
pelvis.
he's doing it too.
Oh my
gosh.
God.
But it
I
looks like
forgot
so
about
much
that
fun.
shit.
I wish
That
there
is my
was
childhood.
I just want to go to one of those. Oh my God, that would be like the best, like a exercise, like at midnight or something. Like make it like a fun, like, oh, we're gonna do
Date night, exercise
Yes!
date night.
Oh my, I don't know. I feel like I look silly, but I
mean,
do it.
that is a great date night because like Corey and I used to exercise in the bedroom and like every night before bed. And like, I will just say like, there were vigorous things that happened after exercising was over because you're just sitting there getting all hot and sweaty in front of each other exercising.
I feel like if I were to do that,
yeah.
dude, I'd be like doing 2 minutes of it and then I'm like, okay, I'm done. Like I can't do it anymore.
Well, I mean,
it's
like,
cardio.
Right. Well, you work out though, like you do it for 2 minutes and you do it for 5 minutes.
Exactly.
And then, you know,
like, this shit is cardio. I can't do
full
no
workout.
But anyway, we had to, I definitely had to bring up the Night Stalker. Is there
Well, absolutely, because the Night Stalker is like kind of a product of the Satanic Panic because there were a lot of things in pop culture and there were a lot of things in like crime where you'd find a pentagram here or black candles. And so automatically, oh, that's witchcraft.
Did you ever watch first season True Detective?
No, I have not seen True Detective.
It's got Woody Harrelson and the other
Aged
guy who's really cute, but not. I wouldn't label him hot as fuck because he's just not my type. Matthew McConaughey.
Oh,
and they are both detectives and they're partners, and they're looking into these occult murderings, and it's like a girl, and she had like a goat's head or so. It's like, I believe it takes place in like the early 90s, so right in that Satanic Panic.
right.
It's really good.
No, that is very cool. I don't know.
And it turned out not to be a cult. Sorry, spoiler.
Oh,
it turned out that's what, like. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to spoil it, guys. It came out in 2008, I think.
Oh well,
but like
plenty of time to watch
or
it.
2012, something like that. It wasn't a cult. It was exactly what you're saying. Somebody that was like
pretending because, and that was a huge part of it because the majority of the Satanic Panic was in the media. The majority of the fear was the people who were pushing the fear versus there being something to be afraid of. And I truly think it was a way to get control of the country again. Because if you think about when the Satanic Panic's coming about, it's coming right after the free love in the 60s and the going wild in the 70s with the disco era and the cocaine everywhere. And, you know, porn's getting big and women are out there in the workplace, and who's losing control? The church, the patriarchy. Everything's going wild.
Patriarchy. Oh hell yeah. Women in porn in the 80s and the 90s, like that's when they started enjoying it. That's when they decided, I want to do this because I want to do it, not for you, for me.
Exactly. And it's like, how do we get our grip back on society? How do we take it back a peg to the 1950s where all the unpleasantness is swept under the rug? The gay people aren't living openly. You know, the women are in their place. To me, it all just seems like very much a thing to control the masses, just like the witch trials and the fucking Inquisition and all these things where, because if you think about it, the Satanic Panic, that is born out of religion. It's not
it's never stopped. It's especially going on so bad now. It's going on so bad now. People don't even go to holidays with their families anymore because it just becomes an argument on whether a, you know, extremist Satanic Panic like belief versus your batshit crazy belief. And it just it has caused so much disruption.
Well, yeah, because like I was quite surprised to read that in the Satanic Panic, I'm just going to say what you're alluding to, but in the Satanic Panic, they truly believe that the elite, the politicians, Hollywood, were taking children and drinking their blood to gain powers from them. And that is very much a current era political conspiracy theorist belief.
Stepsy. I don't even want to say his name. Nefri F.
Oh,
You know what I mean?
oh.
That didn't exactly do much to help those conspiracy theories.
Yeah,
They're like, there,
I
right there.
know. I was like, well, they weren't all wrong.
I
No.
know. There, right
'Cause,
there.
yeah,
That's the
there
proof.
was,
You know?
but he didn't himself. We're just, Corey's aunt and I send each other little memes all the time. Just, like,
I just think
randomly.
it's fucking ridiculous that they think that anybody would believe that.
Right?
It
Like,
doesn't matter if we believe it. What matters is what they can get away with.
right.
You know?
And also, it doesn't matter. That's something for us to focus on instead of whatever else is going on. And guarantee you, in the 80s, there was a lot of shit going on behind the scenes that they were trying to keep everybody like focused,
including that person, because he was
Right.
alive and doing that around that time.
Right. No, absolutely. And like, here's the crazy thing that I like just kind of put like puzzle piece fell into place. Like, so in the 80s, you had a lot of young Republicans. You had a lot of kids whose parents were hippies, whose parents were of the free love movement. And then they started having kids in the 70s. And now these kids are coming of age in the 80s and they're rejecting, because like what do kids do? They usually rebel against their elders, right?
Yeah.
So the kids of the free love parents, a lot of them rejected that free love mentality, that like anti-government mentality, and they buckled down on being like little Republicans. Like literally, I remember the Young Republicans Club, and like even Family Ties. Michael J. Fox's character, he was a little young Republican, and his dad was like a lawyer that did a lot of pro bono work or something like that, because his parents were former hippies, and that was part of the whole point of the show, was him being like rebelling against his parents by being like this little Republican. And like, if you think about Satanic Panic, like these young 80s people who are mentally rebelling against that free love mentality were primed for the picking of a fear-mongering mentality that promoted family values and promoted, that red panic in the 50s of like, rat out your neighbor if they're doing something weird. You know what I mean? Like, and the Satanic Panic just kind of picked up where the 50s Cold War left off, but with a different fear, but the same kind of fear. They're different than you. They believe differently. Like anything witchcraft was labeled as satanic unless you were quote unquote in the know. And that same guy that I was saying, like, I remember watching him on the news when I was a kid, that I saw a clip of, and he's like, I was a satanic priest for 10 years. He called witchcraft the right hand, and like bad satanic practices the left hand. And I thought that was funny because he's like, they're basically the same thing. He also said he could kill somebody with a word. So, I mean, I'm not saying he's an expert. Like literally the interviewer was like, so can you just think and kill? Oh, okay. So it's just so funny. Before we end, I just have to share what this guy said in this little interview. He's like, I was meeting with the high priest of the Wicca tradition.
Okay, completely unrelated, but go ahead.
Yeah, no, this is like in the interview, and he's like, and this guy was telling me that like he just doesn't have the power to contend with someone like me.
What a fucking asshole.
and he goes, the interviewer is like, can you kill someone with a thought? And he goes, no, but a word.
What is it?
He didn't say that. Come on. Come on. Oh my God. I was just like, oh, this is my childhood. It's so cringy.
If anybody says about anybody, whether it's them or like, even if it's another person I know in the pagan community that's like, they said they couldn't compete with me, everything you say is out the window.
Yeah.
Everything you say, I don't believe.
I was just giggling the whole time this guy's talking because it's so ridiculous. But that, that's the stuff. Like they even had like law enforcement videos of like what to watch out in your community for Satanism, Satanic Panic. But it led to bad things. Like anybody who's aware of the Memphis 3, like those boys went down because like they were practicing Wicca. And they were accused of being Satanists and killing these kids in Memphis or West Memphis.
Which are two different things.
It's two different things. And like, and like because they practiced Wicca is why they went down, you know? And it's like, there was a lot of bad stuff that everything that came out of the Satanic Panic was not good, except for the pop culture. It was kind of funny. But I don't know, like if you were alive back then, or if you look into that kind of stuff because you're into pop culture history and whatever, I'm curious what your thoughts on the Satanic Panic were, because it's just something that occupies some space in my mind, not all the time, but quite regularly, just because it is a prevalent thing from my childhood. I mean, it's very prevalent.
I mean, it's part of how you grew up in America.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it
so
really
I
is.
totally understand.
Yeah.
If you're watching us on YouTube, don't forget to like and subscribe. You can find us on Threads, Instagram, and Facebook at Witches Talking Tarot.
And you can find us on the X at Classiest Witches, because we are the classiest witches you know. So thank you for supporting us, to Death by DVD,
Melissa
Victoria,
and Pam.
We appreciate you. If you guys would also like a spiffy little shout out like them, you can find us on patreon.com/Witches Talking Tarot. And thank you for coming to sit with us for a spell. Bye.
That was a fun time.
I'm Maddie,
I'm Amber.
and we're Witches Talking Tarot.
We are the Weird Optimistic.
I get song like a sailor's snubble. Flip the switch and let the cauldron bubble. Sam.
Wow.